Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Luke. We are studying Luke chapter 15, chapter 14 today, and we're about to finish our study of Luke 14. We're going to look at verses 34 and 35 today, so I invite you to give attention to that text. Here, Jesus, we don't know the occasion of Jesus making this statement, but it's in the context where he's been talking about a group of people who are unwilling to make the commitment. Now, watch what he says. Likely he is talking to his disciples directly, but we don't know. But listen to his words. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, focus on that last phrase. Jesus is recorded as having said that on more than one occasion. He who has ears, let him hear. Now, he isn't saying he who actually has ears on the side of his head or the ability to hear words, uh, but he is saying something far more important than that. He who is able to hear, really understand what I'm saying, and take it not just in here, but into his heart, then listen. Listen and take it in and understand and apply what it is I am trying to teach you. So, what is it that Jesus is trying to teach us here? Now, I want to go back and I want you to look at that. Salt is good. That reminds me of Matthew 5:13. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said something similar. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. There are two things as I look at these two verses together that come to mind. Salt is good, and ye are the salt of the earth. And then Jesus said, if it loses its taste, how can that saltiness be restored? Now, he is literally here talking about salt, and he's making a spiritual lesson. He is comparing them metaphorically to teach us spiritually. He's talking about the compound sodium chloride, NaCl, if I want to be scientific about it, but sodium chloride. And he's saying if it loses its ability, if it no longer is what it requires, if it's no longer salt, if it loses what makes it salt, then what good is it? Now we're going to come back to that in just a moment, but I want you to consider what else Jesus said. It is of no longer use either for the soil or the manure pile. Is that a strange thing to you? The idea of salt. I put salt on my eggs. I put salt on my tomatoes to give them the taste that I desire. I don't put salt on the ground. I don't put salt certainly on a manure pile. When I need to understand Jesus's reference here, and man, when I do, there's a powerful lesson. Jesus is talking about the salt, the amount of salt, the compound NaCl that is actually found in fertilizer and found in. Did you know that people, especially in those days, and it's still a practice, if you buy fertilizer today, um, sodium nitrate, and you put it on your garden, there's an amount of this NaCl, amount of this salt there, because it is in its right form, in its right amount. It is fertilizer for the soil to make things grow. And why in the world would you put salt in a manure pile? Did you know salt aids in the decomposition? It turns that manure pile into compost and into fertilizer, something that enriches growing things. Now do I understand what it is that Jesus is teaching me here? He's saying salt is good, but if you lose what it takes to be salt, you'd no longer have that fertilizing effect. Now, let's quickly think about this. Did you know? I did a little research. This NaCl salt, it actually doesn't have. It's very, very stable, and doesn't lose its flavor, doesn't lose its quality. But if you mix moisture, if moisture is mixed in, then it actually loses. NaCl is rendered ineffective and it leaves a white powder, a pile of what looks like salt, but it isn't salt at all. Now I understand what Jesus was saying. I may look like a child of God, but if I have lost what makes me a child of God, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The takeaway from today is very simple. My life should have a positive effect for Christ on the world. I left out the word world, on the world around me. Does it? Thank you so much for listening.